Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Mike Davies and today we'll be taking an in-depth look at GIMP's on-canvas vignette filter. Real quick before I dive in, if you want to see more tutorials covering free and open source software like GIMP, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and click the bell icon to be notified each time I have a brand new tutorial. Alright, so to briefly describe what a vignette is, it's basically just going to be a frame that goes around your photo, and the goal of it is to draw the viewer's attention in towards the subject or the action in a photo. So basically it's a very soft color frame. You can access the vignette filter inside of GIMP by going to Filters, Light and Shadow, Vignette. So here you'll see the on-canvas controls. If you do not see the controls, make sure number one that you are using GIMP 2.10.20 or newer. That's when they added these features. Or if you are using a newer version of GIMP, come over here to the Vignette dialog and come down here and make sure on-canvas controls is checked. So let's explain what these controls are. So you have several lines here. The outer line is known as the outer limit. So you'll see here, everything outside the outer limit is going to be the vignette itself. So this black area is the vignette. Of course, the vignette is still inside here a little bit because it's starting to fade out or fall off. So this area where it is fading out is called the fade area, as you might expect. And this line here, this dotted line or this dashed line, is going to be the midpoint line. So this adjusts the midpoint of the fade out of the vignette. And as it fades out, it reaches this line here, which is known as the inner limit line. And then inside the inner limit line is the soft area. The soft area contains no vignette, so that's basically the point at which the vignette stops, and it goes back to being the original image. So you can adjust all of these lines by clicking and dragging. And you'll see that as you click and drag the lines, it's going to change the features over here. It's going to change the settings for these sliders. So if you drag the inner line, that's going to change the softness. If you come over here and you drag the midpoint line, it'll change the gamma. The gamma is just basically the rate of fall off of the vignette. If you drag the outermost line, the outer limit, it's going to change the radius and the softness. And you'll see also that as I drag that outermost line, it's going to drag the midpoint line with it. So the midpoint line does sort of adjust there to make sure the settings are the same. So you also have these handles, and if I click and drag this handle here, you'll see that all of the handles are going to adjust, and that's actually adjusting the squeeze of the vignette. So of course we are squeezing it or squishing it down, and I can click and drag that back up if I want to. Of course, I can always come over here at any time and click reset. That's going to reset the settings back to the default. So you also have handles on this side. If I click and drag these handles in, it's going to change the radius and the squeeze. So basically we are vertically squishing this inwards, and that is causing the radius of the entire vignette itself to also change. So let's hit reset. If I hold the shift key and drag either line, so it doesn't matter which one, it's going to drag all the lines together, as you see there. If I let go of the shift key and drag the outer line, it'll only expand the outer line there. And if I come over here, hover my mouse over the middle, I can click and drag this around like the move tool. So that's changing the center X and center Y, or in other words, the center point of the vignette. So for example, if your subject's face, like in this case, is a little off center and you want the vignette to be centered around the face, you can reposition this on that area and it'll make sure the vignette is centered around that point. You can also hover your mouse around the outer edges. Let me hold Control and zoom out. So if I hover my mouse outside of the vignette, my mouse pointer will change and you can now rotate this. So if I click and drag, that will rotate the vignette. And if I hold the Control key, it'll rotate it in 15-degree increments. So that allows you to change the vignette from more of a horizontal vignette to a vertical vignette. So let's come over here and hit reset. You also have a proportion option. So with this set to 1, it's going to match the proportion or the aspect ratio of the image. If I were to drag this all the way down to 0, what that's going to do is it's going to change the vignette to a perfect circle instead of matching the aspect ratio. So obviously the values in between will be somewhere in between a perfect circle and the aspect ratio of the image. So of course you can manually adjust any of the values here using the sliders, and you can also middle click with your mouse and use the arrows and move over and then type using the number pad on your keyboard. Hit the enter key. So basically you can manually set these values if you want more precise values. But I think the on-canvas controls are best for very quickly getting what you want out of your vignette, getting it to look the way you want it to look. So let's hit reset. So when I'm setting up a vignette, I don't like it being super prominent like this. I like clicking and dragging the radius or the outer limit line there until the vignette, the harsher parts of the vignette, go just off the page. So that makes the vignette look much more subtle. And then I can come over here to the handles and click and drag these in to squish them in a little bit. So that kind of allows us to focus on the subject a lot more. So maybe we'll go with about right there. Let's continue to click and drag this out. And then we can drag the midpoint in to allow that fade out to sort of fade out a lot more closely to the subject itself. But let's expand the middle area or the inner limit line so that we're not fading out over the subject, we're just fading out just outside where the subject is here, if that makes sense. So we're not covering the subject with the vignette. So we can also see a preview. So we can uncheck the preview. There's before, there's an after. And you can also do a split preview here or a split view, and you can hide the on-canvas controls to get a better look at that. So let's come over here and click OK. So by default, it will apply your vignette directly to your image layer. Let me show you real quick how to more non-destructively apply your vignette. So let's come over here to this image. I'm also going to demonstrate some other features about the vignette. So right now we actually still have the vignette tool active on our mouse pointer. That's why our mouse pointer looks like a crosshair right now. So let me first create a new layer before we use the vignette. So let's come over here to the layers panel and click to create a new layer. And let's name this vignette. Fill it with transparency and click OK. So now we're going to click inside the image, and that will bring up the vignette tool again since that was the last filter we used. Otherwise, you can go to Filters, Reshow Vignette, or go to Light and Shadow, and then Vignette. So a couple of other features I didn't cover yet. Number one, you can change the shape. So we were working with a circle shape that whole time. You can actually change this to a square shape if you want, which right now you can't see it. Let's turn on the on-canvas controls again. So you'll see the controls are now square shaped. And if I drag these inwards, you can see the square there. And you can also change the vignette shape to a diamond. Or I can use my mouse wheel to scroll down. You can also do a horizontal shape, which is probably what would work best for this image since the subjects go off the page there. And you can also do a vertical vignette. So let's come back to horizontal, and you can also change the color of the vignette. So if I click on the color box, I can choose a new color like white or any other color and come over here, click OK. And then with the vignette shape being horizontal, everything still applies, everything I went over with the circular shape. So inside this area here, inside the inner limit lines is the soft area. I can click and drag that with my mouse to reposition that. I can also click and drag the soft area outward or the inner limit lines outward. I can click and drag the midpoint there so that the fade starts to happen a little later. And I can click and drag the outer limit lines so that the vignette is not quite as prominent. And let's just drag this out a little more. And I can still preview, so there's a before, there's an after, and click OK. So there we have a horizontal vignette, and it's on its own layer. So now it's more non-destructive, meaning we can show or hide this at any time, and it doesn't affect our original image or of course we can come over here, click on the layer, and click to delete that. So let me come over to this third and final image to demonstrate the remainder of the features of this tool. So let's go to Filters, Reshow Vignette, and I'm going to change the shape to square, and let's just adjust this, move the soft area, and adjust the midpoint line there. So at the very bottom here, you'll see blending options. So you can scroll through these with your mouse wheel, and that's just going to create a blending mode using your vignette. So the blending mode is going to blend with the layer that you are selected on. And of course, the result will depend on the color you have selected and the mode you have selected. So you can always scroll through those with your mouse or click on the drop down and manually choose one of the options there. Let's go with soft light here. And you can adjust the opacity of this. So if you want to turn the opacity of the vignette down, you can do so there. Or you can come over here, turn the opacity up. And I do want to note that if you have your vignette on a separate layer like I did over here in this composition, you can use the blending options and opacity on that layer instead of having to do it here inside of the vignette controls. Let me just click OK. So there we have our vignette. So if I were to come back here to this composition, we can come over to the vignette layer, change that to soft light, and adjust the opacity. So that's a bit more non-destructive than the other option. All right, so that's it for this in-depth tutorial on the vignette filter. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, don't forget to click the like button on this video, subscribe to my channel, and click the bell icon to be notified each time I have a brand new tutorial. You can check out any of the links to my resources in the description of the video, including a link to my GIMP 2.10 masterclass on Udemy. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.